Today we're going to work on the levator scapula. This is the muscle that connects the shoulder blade to the top of the neck. People tend to hold a lot of tension right down at the base of this muscle. If you reach back, you'll find it right at the top of the shoulder blade. I've got one end of the roller right at the top of my shoulder blade. What I'm doing here is I'm moving it around to position it where I actually feel the knot. I'm pushing through my heels and raising my hips to increase pressure on the roller, pushing right into the tension. Use as much or as little pressure as you like. Hey guys, we're going to show you how to use the rad roller on your upper back, which is going to help open up your posture and relieve tension in your neck and shoulders. I'm going to go ahead and lay back on the roller, centering it right in between my shoulder blades. You can pick any spot you like. Simply let your rib cage relax. When you're ready to move to the next spot, just roll it a couple inches down and relax again. If you'd like to make it more intense, cross your arms across your chest and rotate to the left or to the right. You can use the rad roller anywhere from your lower back to the top of your neck. Today we're going to show you how to work the muscles of the hip. I've already set the rad roller down, and what I'm going to do is sit right next to it and slowly start working onto it. Occasionally you can find a lot of tension in these areas, so work slow and slowly ramp up the pressure. When I say hip, I'm actually talking about a complex group of muscles that goes from the sacrum all the way to the front of the pelvis. Spending time in chairs actually glues these muscles together, and we tend to lose that really articulate three-dimensional motion we have in our hips. You can see that while I started in the back of my hip, I'm actually rotating my torso to the side so I can get at the musculature in the front of the hip. Today we're going to show you how to work the muscles in the back of your neck. Go ahead and place the roller on the ground and lay back on it so the roller's right at the base of your skull. I like to hold the roller with either one or two hands. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually pressing the top of my neck into the roller and making small circles. When I go back and forth like this is actually providing cross friction on the tissue, which helps unglue the muscles at the top of the neck. We tend not to be very conscious of it, but the muscles at the back of the neck are postural muscles that hold our head up all day long, and tension back here is normal. Go ahead and move down your neck and use the same cross-frictional movements that you used on the top. This is a great place to freestyle because everybody holds tension in different places. Work from the top of the neck down to the top of the ribs.
라드의 구성품의 종류와 특성을 소개해 드리겠습니다. 라드 키트 세트는 라드의 로드, 헬릭스, 롤러, 라운드, 블럭으로 구성되어 있습니다. 각각의 구성품들은 인체 관절과 근육의 문제점들을 해결해주는 아주 강력하고 좋은 도구라고 할 수 있습니다. 뿐만 아니라 인체 공학적인 모양으로 설계된 각각의 도구들이 기존에 출시되어 있는 마사지 이완 도구로는 해결해주지 못하는 통증점이나 문제점들을 아주 효과적으로 해결해 줄 수 있다고 할 수 있습니다. 라드의 또 다른 특징은 우리의 손이 쉽게 닿지 못하는 등 상부나 하부의 국소 부위 또는 목 뒤쪽의 특정한 부위 등까지 누구나 쉽게 할 수 있는 간단한 동작으로 문제점들을 해결할 수 있다고 할 수 있습니다. 이렇게 함으로써 통증을 줄이는 것뿐만 아니라 자세 교정이나 재활적인 부분에서도 이용될 수 있는 부분이 상당히 많다고 할 수 있겠습니다.
Today we're going to show you how to work the superficial muscles on the upper leg that control the basic back and forth motion of the knee. The knee joint in a nutshell is a simple hinge that moves back and forth with a little bit of rotational capacity built in. The quad and the hamstring extend and flex the knee respectively, and if they're tight, you're essentially preloading your ligaments and setting yourself up for uneven wear and tear in the joint cartilage. We also get into trouble when you don't have full range of motion in the knee, because it throws off the mechanics of the joints above and below, the ankle and the hip. The quad is the big muscle that goes from the pelvis down and over the knee. We'll use the roller to just above the knee though. It's really common to see this muscle tight because of too much sitting or also overuse. The quad actually crosses two joints, the hip and the knee, so we need to work all the way from the hip crease to the top of the knee. Opposite the quads on the back of the knee, we have the hamstrings, which flex the knee and oppose the quads. The goal of this work is to balance the knee by lengthening both of these muscles so they don't impede any range of motion in the knee. You'll find the origin of the hamstring by placing the roller just ahead of your sit bones. I like to make short 3-inch movements and slowly work my way down. You can also use cross friction here by rolling back and forth while also pushing sideways into the roller. Go ahead and work all the way down to the back of the knee. Don't forget to switch sides. So when's the last time you've stretched your forearms or had a massage therapist work on your hands? It's probably been a while, right? The muscles that control our hands rarely get a break, yet they're resilient, so we often forget that they can carry a lot of tension and affect the relationship of the wrist and elbow. The flexors are found on the underside of the forearm and run from the wrist to the elbow. These are the muscles you'd use when you're carrying a box or typing on a computer. You can use the rad roller on a tabletop or on your desk, and just go ahead and put your arm right on top. You'll be working from the wrist up to the bony prominence on the inside of the elbow. Just press down, go back and forth, and make short, slow movements. You can also provide cross friction by pressing down and to the side at the same time, trying to unglue some of those muscles from the arm. There's no big secret to the movement here. You just want to do it with some regularity to keep your wrists happy. Moving up on the other side of the elbow, we can work on the tricep in the same position. Just like the forearms, these muscles get used a ton and rarely stretched, so let's give them a little R&R. The muscles of the tricep are much bigger than the bicep and actually wrap around the whole back of the arm. So make sure to cant your arm over and roll on either side too. You can use moderate pressure straight down, and you can also add in some sideways pressure for cross friction. The tricep connects high on the arm and all the way up in the shoulder too, so follow it all the way back to your armpit. Go ahead and switch sides to balance things out. The hips are really the center and origin of most movement, and we're going to show you how to begin to work with them using the rad roller. There's over 30 muscles that connect to the pelvis, so we're just going to scratch the surface here and work on some of the superficial muscles. We're going to work on the adductors first, which go from the pelvis to the inside of the knee. Use your rad block for this one. You're going to sit down and lean over so you can place one sit bone on top of the block. Once you're in that position, the roller goes under and you can use pressure and cross friction to begin to unwind the muscle. The adductors are powerful extensors of the hip, but tend to receive little attention in the mobility department because they can be hard to stretch. When they're tight, you lose extension in the hip, and that can make your back hurt, and it can also throw your knees and ankles out of line. The glute complex is another powerful extensor of the hip, and it wraps from the sacrum all the way to the front of the hip. Sit down with your hands behind you and start pressing into the roller. Work from the back of the hip pocket and roll up to the top of the pelvis and back down to the deep portion of the hip pocket. Then move and repeat. You want to go from the back of the hip all the way to the front. It's nearly useless to try to pinpoint one muscle because the hip is so layered you'll probably be working 5 different ones each time. So focus on range of motion and tight tissue. The hips are workhorses that need regular tension to keep everything moving fluidly. Since most of us spend so much time in chairs through the day, these muscles actually tend to get matted together by the fascia, and they slowly use that articulate 3D range of motion that the hips are known for. Go ahead and switch sides to balance things out. The ankle is a complicated joint that relies on mobility in compound angles to function at its optimal. The typical human ankle isn't exposed to enough natural movement to bring it through its full range of motion. Where we used to walk on uneven ground, we now walk on flat surfaces and concrete floors almost all day. If you're sitting at a desk, the problem gets even worse because your foot's immobile for most of the day. First things first, we need to work on range of motion both above and below the ankle, so let's start at the top and work down. There are 2 main muscles in the back of the calf. The gastroc connects up high, and then the soleus has connection lower. If you run your thumb down your shin, you'll find a spot where the soleus connects to the bone. We're going to roll low from about the center of the calf to just above the Achilles tendon. This is a good one to use your rad block. You need the extra height so your ankle doesn't drag on the ground. You can do it without, but it won't be quite as effective. Go ahead and put the roller on the block and begin to make short 3-inch movements, pressing deep into the muscle. You're pressing straight down, but you can also pressure the side, so you're effectively peeling some of the soleus away from the other muscles. The soleus is the forgotten workhorse of the leg because it's used to stabilize the foot, and it provides most of the muscular work and stability during walking and running. So this ends up being corrective work for those movements. Whenever you run, it's helpful to stretch and also make sure you've got mobility in your ankle, and this is how you do it. Since we're working on gaining range of motion in the ankle, we're going to work on the underside of the foot also, since this is where many of these calf muscles connect. Rolling the foot is easy and straightforward. Put the roller under your foot and start slowly rolling in 1-inch movements, starting at the ball of the foot and working straight back. I like to start towards the outer edge of the foot and then slowly work all the way to the inner arch, canting your foot over. Kind of like the hip, you're going to be hard-pressed to point out exactly which muscles or fascia you're working on, because there are so many that overlap here. Use moderate pressure to start, and slowly start to unwind any tension over mini sessions, rather than one hard session. To balance things out, we can switch over to the other side of the calf and work on the tibialis anterior, which runs down the front of the shin. We're going to use the same concept that we used on the foot by rolling in short movements, working from top to bottom. Start on the outer edge of the shin, right below the knee, and work down to the ankle. Working sideways, you want to work from the shin bone in the front to the outer edge of the leg where the peroneals live. The tibialis anterior is the muscle that's commonly associated with shin splints because it has a big role in stabilizing the foot and ankle, so keeping it open and healthy is important. Switch to the other leg to balance things out.
자, 라드를 한국에 소개하게 돼서 너무나도 기쁘게 생각합니다. 저도 사실 트레이닝 현장에 있지만 우리 지금 트레이닝 현장에서도 너무나도 많은 어떤 이완 도구들이 많죠. 그리고 또 일반인들도 요즘에는 아주 흔하게 이완 도구들을 많이 접할 수 있습니다. 근데 이 라드는 우리가 가장 저렴하면서도, 그리고 또한 우리가 목표로 하는 그런 근막 이완이라든지 트리거 포인트 마사지라든지 또 일반적인 우리 딥티슈 마사지라든지 이런 것들을 가장 잘 이완시킬 수 있고, 그리고 또한 관리할 수 있는 그런 어떠한 제품의 특성을 우리가 가지고 있습니다. 자, 이 라드의 탄생 배경을 보면 우리 지금 현재 현존하는 세계적으로 많은 그런 마사지 이완 도구들이 많습니다. 전문적인 관리 도구부터 우리가 손쉽게 활용할 수 있는 도구들까지 많습니다. 하지만 이 라드는 이 탄생 배경을 보게 되면 이렇게 전 세계적으로 유행하는 도구들 중에 가장 저렴하면서도 가장 쉽게 우리가 적용할 수 있는 그러한 제품이 무언가에 대해서 연구하게 되었고, 그렇게 해서 지금 라드의 어떤 하나하나의 도구들이 만들어졌고, 그런 것들을 어떻게 우리가 또 쉽게 가져갈 수 있고 휴대하기 편한가, 그런 것들을 연구하게 되어서 지금의 라드 키트가 만들어졌다라고 보시면 될 것 같습니다.
The neck's an important part of the body because it contains the control center, the head, which can weigh more than 8 pounds. And the neck muscles need to balance this big bowling ball all day long. For every inch the head moves forward, you actually double the tension in the neck because the neck has to hold the head up. Let's work on the muscles right below the skull that do most of this work, the suboccipitals. Go ahead and lay back on the roller and place it right underneath your skull. Place 2 fingers on either side of the roller to hold it in place and move your head in small circles around the roller. The suboccipitals wrap around the head, almost to the ears, so make sure to roll on either side of the skull. You can even go above and roll lightly on the scalp because the skull anchors these muscles, so if they're tight, it tends to push the tension up into the scalp. What Sam's doing here is he's rolling down into the base of his neck. After you go around the suboccipitals, you can take one end of the roller in your hand and start to work down the side of the neck. Superficially, you'll be hitting the traps, vater scap, and lower suboccipitals. Work down the side, pressing the neck into the roller, and go all the way down to the top of the ribcage. If you carry a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders or get tension headaches, this short sequence only takes a couple minutes to do. The shoulder is an amazing joint, and we're going to run through some of the basic motions with the rad roller to keep it healthy and aligned with the head and neck. These movements are good to utilize after you've gone through the neck and thoracic spine videos, since the muscles of the shoulder anchor off the spine and ribcage. In a healthy shoulder, the shoulder joint should be in line with the ears and also directly above the hip. Let's go over the pec minor first, which connects the shoulder to the ribcage. When this muscle is tight, it actually pulls the shoulder blade down and forward. To work on it, you want to use the rad block or a yoga block that you have lying around. Lean over the block and place the rad roller on top, then press into the rib cage on the side of the pec muscles and also underneath. You'll feel the roller pressing against your rib cage. Press the roller towards the midline and work slowly down. The subscapularis is right in the same area, except on the inside of the rib cage, so we're going to use the roller on the block in the exact same way. The subscapularis is in between the rib cage and the shoulder blade, so you're applying pressure right in the back of the armpit against the shoulder blade. You can wrap your arm around to access it a little more. If the subscap's open and healthy, the shoulder hangs naturally and enjoys a balanced range of motion. If it's tight, it can create an instability in the shoulder. Let's move on to the top of the shoulder now. We're going to work right here on the trapezius, or the trap, which connects the shoulder blade to the neck. The traps distribute all the weight of the shoulder into the whole upper spine, but if they're tight, they tend to put the weight up into the head and neck. So Sam's going to switch over here and place one end of the roller on top of his back, right behind his collarbone. He's holding it in place, and he's lifting his hips up if he wants more leverage. This is opening up both the neck and the shoulder blade at the same time. You're actually working a number of muscles here as you work through, because there's a group of muscles that meet around the spine and shoulder, so don't worry too much about placement. Just making these short and easy movements can make a tremendous difference in your posture and the way you feel, because your head and neck can relax from trying to hold your shoulders up. You want the weight of your shoulders to be distributed along the upper back, rather than just hanging off your head and upper neck. Don't forget to switch sides. The thoracic spine is the area of the spine that contains and supports the rib cage. It's a very rigid structure, but should still have a big range of motion. The problem is that people tend to have too much flexion or bending forward. When Sam's opening up here, he's showing a much more natural and open posture. Right now we're going to work from the base of the neck to the base of the rib cage, with the goal of getting some extension and motion back into this area. Start by laying back on the roller right at the base of the neck. Lean back, let your neck and shoulders relax, take a couple deep breaths, then move on to the next segment. If you want to make it more intense, you can give yourself a big hug and rotate from side to side like you'll see Sam doing here. You can repeat that sequence all the way down to the base of the rib cage. The problem here is that most people have too much rigidity in the thoracic spine along with too much flexion. Flexion is a bending forward of the thoracic spine, usually caused from too much sitting, cycling, or anything else that bends you forward. If the thoracic spine is nicely extended, then the head sits right on top of the spine and the shoulders sit back in their natural position. It's the foundation for the head, neck, and shoulders, so it's important to first make sure you have an open and natural posture here. If your shoulders round forward or if your head drifts forward naturally, then start by opening up the thoracic spine. The rhomboids and traps are on either side of the spine, and you can reach them by turning the roller sideways and working around the shoulder blade. These are shoulder adductors, the muscles that pull the shoulder towards the spine. Again, since there's multiple layers of muscle here, you don't need to worry about which exact one you're working on. It's really an exercise in gaining range of motion in your upper neck and shoulders. By ungluing all these muscles, you allow the whole system to move more efficiently. You can see here that Sam's slowly moving the roller up and down the inner shoulder blade here. Keep in mind that muscles can be stuck both long and short, so doing this work before you stretch or exercise can be a big help. It's just simple body maintenance stuff. Go ahead and switch sides after you've gone around the whole shoulder blade. The low back essentially makes up the functional center of the body. It carries weight but doesn't have a lot of range of motion itself. We'll show you some movements here, but make sure to work above and below as shown in the T-spine and hips video. A healthy low back means a balance of extension and flexion, but we'll be mostly working on extension today. We're going to work today on two areas. We'll work straight down the spine from the rib cage to the pelvis, and then we'll work on the musculature out to the side that connects the pelvis to the rib cage and the spine. This muscle out here is the quadratus lumborum, and it's a big workhorse in walking and running. Let's start at the top of the low back, right at the base of the rib cage. Go ahead and lay back on the roller and let yourself relax. If you want a little more intensity, you can bring your knees up and down like Sam's doing here. Move down each segment and repeat until you're all the way down to the top of the sacrum. Keeping the low back healthy is all about balance between flexion and extension. If you have too much flexion, or bending forward, you start to eat away at the lumbar discs. If you have too much extension, you irritate the facet joints in the back and cause muscle strain. We're working extension here, but if you want to work on flexion, you can work your quads and hip flexors in the other videos. Now Sam's already moving on to the quadratus lumborum, or the QLO. He's putting the roller right below the bottom of the rib cage and pressing in with his heels. Then he'll move down until he gets to the top of the pelvis, and he's going to stop on any tight areas. This muscle holds the pelvis level when you lift one of your legs up, so it's common to see tension here in runners. It's also common to see one side tighter than the other, so don't forget to work both sides.
라드의 구성품의 종류와 특성을 소개해 드리겠습니다. 라드 키트 세트는 라드의 로드, 헬릭스, 롤러, 라운드, 블럭으로 구성되어 있습니다. 각각의 구성품들은 인체 관절과 근육의 문제점들을 해결해주는 아주 강력하고 좋은 도구라고 할 수 있습니다. 뿐만 아니라 인체 공학적인 모양으로 설계된 각각의 도구들이 기존에 출시되어 있는 마사지 이완 도구로는 해결해주지 못하는 통증점이나 문제점들을 아주 효과적으로 해결해줄 수 있다고 할 수 있습니다. 라드의 또 다른 특징은 우리의 손이 쉽게 닿지 못하는 등 상부나 하부의 국소 부위 또는 목 뒤쪽의 특정한 부위 등까지 누구나 쉽게 할 수 있는 간단한 동작으로 문제점들을 해결할 수 있다고 할 수 있습니다. 이렇게 함으로써 통증을 줄이는 것뿐만 아니라 자세 교정이나 재활적인 부분에서도 이용될 수 있는 부분이 상당히 많다고 할 수 있겠습니다.
Okay, so I'm going to get you to lie on your back, please. Now you're going to use a rad block just for comfort. You're going to place your head on there. Now let's start at the thoracolumbar junction. Pretty much that's just the opposite of your belly button, all right? So that's perfect. Knees are bent. Just kind of relax into the release. Okay, so this is hitting. Lower yourself down there, Kim. Perfect. Right at the base of the skull. And just again, sink down in. You can relax and hold for 10 deep breaths when you find a tender spots. You can try going side to side slightly, rotate your head to target the left or right side. Very good. All right. As well. So sit up there, please. All the way down at the low back. Perfect. And we can sink in and hold. We can just do a little shift up and down. And we can also keep the legs together, do a little fall out to target the left side. Fall out to target. Let's target the left shoulder. You want to assume sort of a lunge stance, so kind of split your legs. Perfect. So you're comfortable, you're stable. Let's move the arm up to about a 90-degree angle at the elbow. Now we want to go just below the collarbone. A muscle called the pec minor runs vertically like this and often gets really tight and short and is quite painful and tender when you do this release. So a few different techniques we can execute. You're going to just find a tender spot, treat what you find. You're going to move around and find the spot that's most tender. Once you find that, sort of lunge and press into the rad round and then count 10 deep breaths. All right? Next, we can add some tiny micro movements or parameters. And you can sort of go up and down a little bit. We can also try going side to side. Do whatever feels best. And lastly, we'll try another technique where you're going to lengthen your arm, reach with those fingertips, and then you're going to sort of rotate your body and create a shearing effect. Good. All right, so now let's show the other side of the shoulder. And we'll get you down again. Search for any tender spots. When you find a spot that's quite sore and painful, you're just gonna sink in, relax into the release, lengthen the arm, reach those fingertips. We're lengthening the structures that we're targeting. And again, shear, cross. Great, now Kim, I'm gonna get you to shift downward toward the front of your pelvis into the hip flexors, okay? So we're gonna find this pocket of muscles where we find the TFL, we find the rec fem, which is part of the quadriceps. We're even gonna get the, now we can add some movement, and you can sort of shift up and down, or side to side. Excellent, and lastly, you're going to lengthen the leg, point your toes downward, and then sort of shear your body across. And just sort of relax your foot, let those toes drop. We're hitting the plantar fascia, the bottom of the foot. We have three main arches. We have the lateral, we have the medial, and we have the transverse arch. So pretty much you can try to cover the entire surface area of the bottom of the foot. See what you find when you find a spot. And then we can also try moving the toes. So almost sort of grab the ball, sink your toes down, and then almost extend those toes up and lift. And do that repeatedly. Nice and tall, relax as much as possible. I'm just going to start right above the shoulder. I'm going to sort of flush, press the tissue. I'm putting more pressure as I roll up and sort of ease off as I come back down. All right, we can also try turning the head to the left. And that will lengthen the musculature in the upper traps for a little bit of a different effect. All right, next off, Kim, we're gonna demonstrate the lat. So I'll get you on your side, please, facing that way. Perfect, so I'll just get you to lift that arm up out of the way. Good, make sure you're relaxed. I'm gonna start all the way down here by the ribs. Make sure you're not pressing too hard. You don't wanna compress the ribs. And again, I'm gonna sort of flush upwards with more pressure on the way up, and I sort of ease off as I return to the starting position. And then if you sort of rotate forward, Kim, and be able to access a little bit farther back, posterior portion of the body. There we go. All right, so Kim, I'm gonna get you to do this on your hip flexors and quadriceps. Next off, so have a seat. There we are. Perfect. So again, sitting upright, excellent posture, nice and relaxed. There you go. So you're gonna have pressure going both down and up. I like to have a little bias of flushing a little bit more pressure as you roll upwards. Right on. Next off, we're gonna show you going back upwards. Now, we're gonna say about 30 to 60 strokes. The key is stop when you feel as though you're starting to get a positive response. Like the muscles start. Get you to use this once again. And just try the calf roll again on the lower leg. That's it. So the helix is it. There you are. So make sure you're comfortable. The left arm is extended out. That's perfect. And treat what you find. You can sort of stop right, right beneath the shoulder. And various techniques we can use. You can simply find a tender spot, sink in, relax and hold, count 10 deep breaths. We can also try doing a little bit of added friction, rolling up and down, breaking down those cross bridges of muscle fiber, promoting blood flow. And last but not least, Kim, I'm gonna get you to reach that left arm out, reach those fingertips, and then I want you to turn your body to create a shearing effect. All right, next we're gonna show you how to use this for your spine. So I'll get you to lie on your back, please. Comfort first, so we're gonna use the rad block for added support. Yeah, we'll just go right in the mid-back into the thoracic spine. So you're gonna find that you're not extending over this as much as a larger foam roller. If you're in the comfort of your home, you can certainly just do this in your sports bra. Go with that skin contact. We're gonna get that shearing effect. And that can also try to free up some of those free nerve endings in the spine that can sort of get compressed and aggravated. Again, you can sink in and hold, relax when you find a tender spot, take 10 deep breaths. We can try doing a little bit of a roll, very slowly up and down. Make sure you're not going too fast. Relax your body as much as possible. Good. Please. Yep, perfect. So we'll start with the outside of the hip, kind of getting into the vastus lateralis and the IT band. The leg is straight, your body is supported, you are parallel to the direction of the muscle fibers. And then you can point your toes downward, lengthen and create sort of a shearing effect. And go perpendicular like so. Good, and just get at the top of the neck. The rad roller is going to line the vertebrae. And once you find a spot that's a little more tender than others, take 10 deep breaths. We can also add some tiny rotations of the neck. When you turn your head left, you'll target the left side. When you turn your head right, you're gonna target the right side, all right? So have a seat. We're gonna have the left knee bent, straighten your right leg. You're gonna find that ball and socket of the hip. And again, treat what you find. If a spot is very tender, let's hang out there for a little bit. Count to 10 deep breaths. It's not about counting seconds. And we can target the whole mass of the hip, all of the glutes. Downward, and you can add a slight shear across. All right, so a few different techniques that we can execute there. Lastly, release. Again, we can start right below the knee. We can progress all the way down towards the ankle. If you find a spot that's tender, you're gonna hang out there a little bit longer. Or you can point the toes and sort of shear across the product. So there you have it. There's some very simple applications of how the rad block can help you with your release techniques. And best of luck.
자, 라드를 한국에 소개하게 돼서 너무나도 기쁘게 생각합니다. 저도 사실 트레이닝 현장에 있지만 우리 지금 트레이닝 현장에서도 너무나도 많은 어떤 이완 도구들이 많죠. 그리고 또 일반인들도 요즘에는 아주 흔하게 이완 도구들을 많이 접할 수 있습니다. 근데 이 라드는 우리가 가장 저렴하면서도 그리고 또한 우리가 목표로 하는 그런 근막 이완이라든지 트리거 포인트 마사지라든지 또 일반적인 우리 딥티슈 마사지라든지 이런 것들을 가장 잘 이완시킬 수 있고 그리고 또한 관리할 수 있는 그런 어떠한 제품의 특성을 우리가 가지고 있습니다. 자, 이 라드의 탄생 배경을 보면 우리 지금 현재 현존하는 세계적으로 많은 그런 마사지 이완 도구들이 많습니다. 전문적인 관리 도구부터 우리가 손쉽게 활용할 수 있는 도구들까지 많습니다. 하지만 이 라드는 이 탄생 배경을 보게 되면 이렇게 전 세계적으로 유행하는 도구들 중에 가장 저렴하면서도 가장 쉽게 우리가 적용할 수 있는 그러한 제품이 무언가에 대해서 연구하게 되었고 그렇게 해서 지금 라드의 어떤 하나하나의 도구들이 만들어졌고 그런 것들을 어떻게 우리가 또 쉽게 가져갈 수 있고 휴대하기 편한가 그런 것들을 연구하게 되어서 지금의 라드 키트가 만들어졌다라고 보시면 될 것 같습니다.